Welcome to Unveiling Death. I'm Rabbi Jeffrey Weil. Loved Ones in Hospice, Time in Slow Motion with Anne McKernan. In this episode, I speak with Anne McKernan, an assistant superintendent of schools in West Hartford, Connecticut. We discuss her sensation of how time slowed down as her loved ones neared death. Anne also talks about her dying mom's dreams of her own grandmother wearing black and standing by a window. And we play the new game that is absolutely sweeping the nation called What Song Do You Want to Hear As You Lay Dying? Enjoy. Anne McKernan, welcome to Unveiling Death. So you accompanied three relatives, I think it was an aunt and your parents, through hospice. And one thing that you mentioned in our previous conversation is this sense that during these times, I'm not sure if you said for each of the three of them, or for your mom in particular, that time sort of slowed down. And I'm hoping that you can describe that, and I'd like to talk about why you think that you had that sensation.
Yes, I absolutely thought at those times that time was ticking away more slowly than normal. And I'm not sure if it was my focused attention on the matter or just as I'm thinking about them going basically towards eternity, I'm
Right.
thinking of time very differently than I normally do because really, what is that? What is eternity? Forever, right? Always existed, always will exist. And that seems to be where they're going. And for me, every second, not like I was longing every second, there was a piece that went with all three of these passings. And I think it was they were all older. None of these were
Mhm.
tragic passings, and all were known to be coming. So, and maybe some of that was peaceful too. I knew they were coming. I believed they were going to a great place, a place of eternity. And as they approached, every moment just seemed like you could enjoy it in a way, savor it in a way, and it was almost a gift to be with them. So I don't
Right.
know if it was obviously my perception or if there is anything. I wish I knew more about physics or something and
Right. Right.
something about how time really works, but it certainly felt that way to me.
Right. So it's interesting because, first of all, very often as people get older, and like we're all experiencing that, time seems to go faster, likely because the each increment is relatively shorter in the span of our longer lives as time goes on. But you think like that might it have had anything to do with your sort of willing time to slow down so you could be with them longer? Was it sort of an emotional desire that you were experiencing? Or, like you mentioned, really interestingly, like they're at the threshold of eternity. So does that warp time somehow?
That's
Um,
kinda how I took it because in each case, my mother had been kinda suffering with congestive heart failure, and I didn't like to see that, and as much as I certainly did not want her to pass away, I was not longing for her to stay uncomfortable. And my dad was in and out of consciousness due to a stroke and back and forth, so I certainly didn't want him hanging on either. I don't think it was a desire to just be with them longer, although I guess it could be, subconsciously or something. I don't know if it's something about watching people approach eternity, watching them and thinking about what that passing will be like, what will be the immediate passing, and then what will be the long term. But again, just a personal feeling that these moments are going slower. They're drifting away. They're not there yet, but they're drifting into this space
right,
uh, we don't know about. And then, we're right on the edge of that. And it felt beautiful and slow and precious, I think, in many
right,
ways, like a real
right.
gift to be with the people you loved at that moment.
At that moment for sure. Would you describe it as like a spiritual sensation or not even that?
A little bit, I don't know if it's because I feel has always been a little bit of a spiritual person. I think, um, I do believe in something beyond, and all of these 3 people who passed were pretty spiritual in their own kind of quiet, personal way. I think they all had deep beliefs. They weren't people to talk about it very much, but, I knew they were all very prayerful people. Um, so, I'm not sure if it was in me or in my mind as much as in my, like, I felt it very cerebrally as well as,
Right,
emotionally, that this is passing very slowly and you're watching it. It could be I was just attending so closely to every moment,
right.
but I remember each time feeling that.
Each time. Wow. There's a great, I'm reminded of this, I think it's the final scene of Our Town by Thornton Wilder, that beautiful
Mhm,
American play, where it's the graveyard. And there's like the young woman who I think is one of the protagonists of the play, and other people who died from the town. And they're talking, I think it's a young woman, I don't remember her name, who's, they're observing people come to the cemetery, and they're just observing life, among the living, and they're dead. And she's noting how everyone acts, moves so quickly, and just like in life, and everyone she's sort of beseeching them, but she couldn't communicate with them, but wishing that they and we all would slow down, actually,
mhm,
in order to save her life. But you mentioned that word, that savoring as well, like you were savoring that,
mhm,
whether you willed yourself or somehow the experience had you doing it,
mhm.
savoring those very special final moments of your relatives.
Yeah, it was very much like you're describing, and I would say the other analogy I think of is like, when you're looking at water that's moving and you can't see very far into it, and then it gets still.
Hmm.
You can see clearly and further down because it gets really still.
Hmm.
And it just seemed as we were approaching this final moments, it was were hours. It was with my mom, it was hours. With my dad, it was days.
We talked mostly about your mom when we were chatted previously, and you mentioned a couple things. One is her religiosity, which you've discussed already, and so I want you to address that a little bit more fully. Like, did her being a faithful person, did it help her at the end? Um, but also, I want to talk about the dreams that you said that she had towards
Mhm.
the end, which seemed really interesting. So, just talk more, if you don't mind, about the religious part of it, her faith.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was definitely a faithful person, and truly faithful, not like, we're Catholic, so you got to go to church every Sunday, right? She felt it was a peaceful place where she could,
Hmm.
I think, quiet her mind and quiet her thoughts. And she definitely was a believer.
Hmm.
And she wasn't like, she definitely wasn't a zealot in any way either. It was quiet. I know at the end it really helped her because she was very funny too. And the last night we actually laughed a lot while she was still conscious. My sister made lots of jokes. My mother laughed. My sister was basically harassing her the whole time. And
Hmm.
it's odd to say we laughed the whole night, until she
Right.
lost consciousness.
Like hours, her
Yeah,
final hours, she
yeah.
was responding to your sister, and probably you too, to the whole environment, and like she was laughing.
Yeah, oh yeah, making jokes to the doctors, she carried a little extra weight and they told her, "Oh, Miss McCurdy, you can have anything you want for dinner." And she's like, "Ha, ha, ha, no one's told me that in years."
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
They're always putting me on diets. And my sister was saying the prayers all wrong on
Hmm.
purpose,
Right.
to make my mother laugh. And she was doing the rosary all wrong. It was really funny. She said, and I think this is a symbol of her faith. She said, "I'm at peace." She said those exact words, "I'm at peace. I'm
Hmm.
okay."
Hmm.
She said, "I tried my best." And I think what that meant was she believed that, you're here for a purpose. You do the very best you can for as many people as you can. And I think that was her way of saying, I really tried to live into what God would have expected.
Right. Wow. Wow. When you say that she was, that she had faith throughout her life, and at this moment as well, um, was it with an expectation that she would be going on, like that her soul is eternal, that she would be whatever in heaven, seeing loved ones? Was that something that she was explicit about, or was it
No,
implicit in her faith, do you think, or was it something else
implicit.
altogether? Uh-huh.
Much more implicit in her face. We never talked really about death. She never talked about a fear of death, although I'm sure she had one like any person does. She just had a very abiding faith in a world beyond this world, but she didn't talk about it a lot. I
Hmm.
think it was in, just all of the teachings that she's had her whole life, and the messages, that this is a temporal world, and there's much beyond it.
Right. Wow. So speaking of beyond it, these dreams, which are pretty amazing dreams, which suggest to me a sense of the beyond it, beyond this. So can you describe the dreams?
Yep. Near the last few weeks of her life, maybe a little bit more, she was dreaming very regularly. And the ones I remember her telling me about the most was her grandmother, who I knew, but I was maybe 5 or 6 when she passed. So my great grandmother, her grandmother, who she always told me she was very close to growing up. An old Italian family, they lived multiple generations in the same home. You know how that
Hmm.
was.
Hmm.
Depression era, everyone pitched in. She's very close to this woman, who's also, all of the people on my mom's side were very faithful people. Like gave her a first rosary, did all those kinds of things, all sacraments with her, and she dreamt of her a lot. She dreamt of her vividly. She dreamt of her when she was sleeping, being in the corner of her room. She would describe exactly where she was standing. She was in that corner. It seemed so real, and she was standing there by the windows, and she was talking to me, and she was remembering things from her childhood. I think they were her
Hmm.
childhood or her teen years or something. And she had a great sense of comfort. She had a very clear um, image of what she was wearing, where she was standing, what she was saying. I thought it
Hmm.
was interesting. She was always standing near the window, near the light.
This
Um,
is just clarify for me. Is the hospital room or?
oh no, no, no! This was in. My mom was only in the hospital at the end for maybe 4 or 5 days. Um, Most of these dreams she was talking about at her in her home, and her grandmother on several occasions came to her in her bedroom. It's where she described it the most. But other times, and I didn't ask her all the questions, she said she had really vivid dreams. They seemed so real.
Mhm.
And I can only say, and I obviously, you know, don't know if there's a difference between what feel like when dreams feel super real, like beyond the, oh, that kind of passing weird thoughts that you have, and so vivid and so real. They almost seem like you're being visited by someone. She didn't say that, but when she described it to me, I kept thinking, this doesn't sound like the kind of most dreams I have.
Regular dreams, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
passing, unconnected thoughts. These were very concentrated thoughts. They didn't waver between different images or
Right.
skip time. They were all in the same time, in the same place. And they were vivid, and they were most regularly her grandmother. And I
Right.
think there might have been others, but I don't recall all of them. I remember her mostly talking about she was just there. And um,
Right.
that's what I remember about it. But I think the vividness is just what stuck with me, and the clarity. And she never forgot him too. It wasn't like a couple days later she was like, "What was that?" She would talk
Mhm.
about it again.
I see. Wow. Yeah, that vividness, that like sort of palpableness of it, that tangible sense of it. Yes, I like when my dear friend Mike Petriano died very, very young. I mean, I felt like those dreams I was having for the year after he died, it's like they were not the normal dreams. Like there was a physicality to his presence in my
Mhm.
dreams. I put my arm around him and I would feel that shoulder,
Oh, wow. Wow.
So and that's after he died. And like for your mom, it's as she was sort of nearing her own death and having that sounds like it's the same sort of like immediacy of the dream. I'm putting it in quotes, the dream image, which I'm also putting in quotes, because it might not have been a regular dream, and it might not have been a regular dream image either. Your mom made the decision, as some make, I'm guessing not most, but some make the decision to forego, is it dialysis? Is that right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when you were declining dialysis, that the end is nigh.
Mhm.
Was that a decision that you and your sister did she like consult with you guys? Did she consult with with clergy or anything like that? Or was that just her own thing?
Not really. I went with her to the visit where they explained what it would be. I remember it was DaVita Dialysis Center. I think that's the
Hmm.
leading dialysis
I
center.
know it,
And
right?
I didn't. I don't know anything about dialysis. And we walked in, and she was again making jokes and kind of lightening the mood. And they told her, "Yeah, you are a candidate. You're, a prime candidate for this," and explained two different ways you could set it up, in the home or going to the center. And she just, listened patiently and said, "Thank you." And we got in the car, and she said, "I'm not doing that." And that was it. She didn't consult me. She did say after, "Are you mad at me?" And I said, "I'm not. How could I
Mhm.
be mad at you?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that."
Mhm. And she knew that when she was not doing dialysis, that it would be coming.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Congestive heart failure and kidney failure are not friends.
Right, right. And there was no second guessing on her own part, like for that decision, and no, obviously, like you described earlier, at least no fear of what that would obviously
She
necessarily
didn't,
mean.
she didn't express anything. The only regret, and I don't think it was a regret, but she did say to me the last night, "I wish I could see the girls grow up longer."
Your
My
daughters,
girls, yeah. These were the younger grandchildren, and she said, she wished she could see them grow up longer. And that was the only
right,
kind of thing she said, that was like, "I'm sad," other than that.
right.
She wasn't, like, happy running around like, "I'm so happy." She just was kind of at peace. And we did
Right.
call, our church, and they were great. Father John came right up, like, I think he was up within an hour. He stayed with her for half hour, 45 minutes, and I know that was important to her.
Hmm. Right, right. No, it's kind of interesting. Like accepting, like she made that decision. She knew that this might mean or would mean that she would not, this would definitely mean that she would not see your girls grow up. And she was willing to just acknowledge that that's the way of the world. I mean, stra she could have said, well, I want to do dialysis so I could see them, whatever, enter
Mhm.
high school, graduate high school, whatever. But like I appreciate the wisdom and just knowing that we don't get everything and we're balancing sort of I don't know, for her, a more natural or more desirable death versus the benefits of living longer. But you can't
Yeah,
have it all, right?
right. Yeah, she definitely was a kind of she had a lot of, like, as she lived, she was like a person you'd say, "Oh, she had such purpose in life," like, she knew her purpose. But, I thought about that after she died, because she did everything. She, I think, more than anything, loved the experience of life. I think she loved just living. And I
Hmm.
think when she felt she wasn't gonna be much more control of that, she was like, "Okay, I've
Right,
had this really great life, and I've had a lot of control." Like, as I said, the only thing she ever told me she feared was, like, she'd say lose her mind, but I think what she meant was like having serious Alzheimer's or something.
would you it sounds like your mom, and obviously we've spoken primarily really about your mom. It sounds like she had a very good death in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think ahead, um, would you want anything different for your own final months, weeks, days?
No, I mean, I think, I'm kind of I'm a lot like my mom, I think, in many ways, even though I'm actually an adopted child, but I'm a lot like her in many ways.
Hmm.
And I think we live in a society where you can prolong death and prolong aging a lot. And there's some benefits, obviously, to that, obviously. But in her state, in her 80s, given her what she had, those, I think they call them comorbidities, or I
Right.
sound like a doctor, I'm not. Um, I think it just was like, I've lived this life to the best I can, and I'm ready for something beyond this. And I think that's a very healthy attitude. And near the end, she was getting sicker, and she certainly was not enjoying that. Um,
Right.
she wasn't enjoying the limitations. She wasn't enjoying. She had to go on oxygen the last
Hmm.
few, maybe last month. She was on oxygen at certain times in the day, and she hated that.
Right. Yeah,
She
sure.
hated losing driving, all that.
Right.
Um, and she was at a assisted living center in the last few months of her life, like 7, and she made a bunch of friends, and she did a lot of great things, but she definitely saw her body just fading away.
Right.
And
right,
she was grateful her mind was not fading away, but
right,
she saw her body fading away and her autonomy fading away. And I think she was ready to say, there's more to this.
right. Um, so we talked earlier about a question that you had not anticipated, but I told you about it, so now you have anticipated it, and I know that you seem to remember that in your mom's case, they put on some music that's sort of like that. I don't know, that's new age kind of massage kind of music. Um, but I'll ask you this: what song? And I know this is just like a first draft, and you can change it anytime you want. Come back on and say, wait, I have a different song. But as you lay on your deathbed, um, what song? And it's ironic, by the way, because I don't have a song. What song might you want to be playing as you lay dying?
Yeah, well, the first thing that came to mind was like AC/DC. No, I'm okay. Um,
Back in Black. Yeah.
Back in Black. No,
Yeah.
it really was Hallelujah.
Hmm.
That was my first thought with, as I said, not much time to process, but a beautiful song and anything that can transform you from beyond, I think, because it's comforting. I think for me, I'm a lot like my mom. Like I do take great comfort in believing that there are things that we don't see and things beyond this world. And maybe it's just as comforting to think there's not. But
Uh-huh.
I kind of subscribe to the belief that's comforting to me. And I saw her, as you said, she kind of died in a beautiful way. I think surrounded by her kids and comfortable and
Right.
at peace. And yeah, that's exactly like the way I'd like to go.
Right. And I hear that and I think Hallelujah, the Leonard Cohen Hallelujah, played by lots of great recordings of that, is a great way to go out.
Yeah,
So although maybe I would sort of alternate like Back in Black or Shook Me All Night Long, whatever,
yeah, those are great too.
or Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Oh yeah,
That's
you're
terrible.
right.
It'd be a terrible thing to go out on. That particular AC/DC song. Um, but Hallelujah would be beautiful. So I appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Um, Anne McKernan, it's been a delight to talk to you. I really appreciate your sharing.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck in your endeavors. It's a really great topic, and I can't wait to hear more.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Anne McKernan, my guest, and thanks as always to my creative director, my editor, my progeny, Sammy Weil. Thanks to the Night Owls of Chicago, my band, for the music that you are listening to right now, coming to a dive bar near me. And thank you for listening to Unveiling Death, Eternity in about 24 minutes, every other Monday.
He tossed his toonie into his rechargeable Toyota and said to his new iPhone, let's go to Minnesota.